Silence, all stand and remain standing until the conclusion of the reading of the proclamation. Ladies and gentlemen, the proclamation. All persons having any business before this honorable court now draw nigh. Give your attendance, and you shall be heard.
Chief Justice, I have the honour to announce that I have been appointed as a judge of this court, and I present to you my commission.
Thank you, Justice Faulkner. Please be seated while the Principal Registrar reads the commission. Principal Registrar.
By Her Excellency, the Honourable Margaret Beasley, Companion of the Order of Australia, King's Counsel, Governor of the State of New South Wales in the Commonwealth of Australia. To Timothy Michael Faulkner, Barrister at Law, greeting. Whereas by the Supreme Court Act 1970, it is enacted that the Governor may, by commission under the public seal of the state, appoint any qualified person to be a judge of the Supreme Court of New South Wales. Now I, the Honourable Margaret Beasley, AC, KC, the Governor aforesaid, in pursuance of the power and authority vested in me on that behalf, do, with the advice of the Executive Council of New South Wales, hereby appoint you, the said Timothy Michael Faulkner, being a person qualified to be so appointed, to be a judge of the said court on and from the 23rd day of May, 2024, with rank and precedence as such in the said court and in the aforesaid state, next after the Honourable Justice James Oleg Melnitsky, one of the judges thereof, provided always that you shall, except in case of leave of absence duly granted to you, actually execute the office to which you are by this commission appointed. Given under my hand and the public seal of the said state, this first day of May, 2024, Margaret Beasley, Governor. By Her Excellency's command, Michael Daly, Attorney General.
Thank you. Acting Principal Registrar, do you have the form containing the oaths and the Bible upon which they will be taken? Justice Faulkner, I ask you to rise to take the oaths of office, first the oath of allegiance and then the judicial oath.
I, Timothy Michael Faulkner, do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty, King George III. I'll just withdraw that. King Charles III. His heirs and successors according to law. So help me God. I, Timothy Michael Faulkner, do swear that I will well and truly serve our Sovereign Lord, King Charles III, in the office of the Judge of the Supreme Court of New South Wales, and I will do right to all manner of people after the laws and usages of New South Wales, without fear or favour, affection or ill will. So help me God.
Thank you, Justice Faulkner. I invite you to resume your seat and subscribe to the oaths, after which I will attest them. Acting Principal Registrar, I hand to you the oaths to be placed amongst the court's archives and the Bible, so that you may have the customary inscription inserted into it, in order that it may then be presented to Justice Faulkner as a memento of this occasion. Justice Faulkner, on my own behalf and on behalf of my colleagues and your new colleagues, I congratulate you on your appointment as the first judge of the court's third century. We've had a lot of history recently, so the reference to George III was understandable. But I've known you for many years. You're a very respected practitioner, and everyone I've spoken to thinks you'll be an outstanding judge. Congratulations.
Thank you, Chief Justice.
Mr. Attorney, do you move?
Thank you, Chief Justice. I acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, the Gadigal, of the Eora Nation, and I pay my respects to elders past, present and future. I acknowledge our Aboriginal friends and colleagues here this morning. Your Honour, on behalf of the Bar and of the people of New South Wales, it's my pleasure to congratulate you on your appointment as a Judge of the Supreme Court of New South Wales. I welcome Your Honour's wife Liz and your children Harrison, Catherine and Lachlan. Also celebrating with you today are your mother June and your siblings Mark and Alexandra. They're joined by Mark's wife Peter Gay and his son Wesley. Sadly missing from this ceremony today is your late father Donald, but we know he's watching. There are many friends and colleagues present today and watching online. They, along with your family, have contributed stories and opinions to help tell an enlightening story of your life up to this moment. Your Honour was born in 1966 at the Royal Canberra Hospital and grew up in and around Canberra. Your father Donald was an astrophysicist, and your mother June a homemaker. You're the second of three close in age, Mark being older and Alexandra younger. Your first home was a cottage next to the Australian National University's Mount Stromlo Observatory. You're a close family and you're grateful to your mum and dad for their broad-minded parenting. You first attended Aranda Primary School in Canberra, then Canberra High School and Hawker College for your last 2 years. You described your public school education as a great encounter, and in your usual humble manner, you did all right. You worked hard, enjoyed learning, and took pleasure from doing things well. You were good at maths and tutored other students. You made friends and got swept along in a range of activities, including soccer. A year in the United States when you were 10 was a defining time for your family. Your father worked for the University of Colorado in Boulder while you and your siblings attended Foothills Elementary School. In the holidays, the family set out on road trips in an old Ford station wagon, exploring the rugged landscape. Figures of two-toned wood-panelled Griswolds appear at this time, Your Honour. It wasn't one of those cars, was it? We might hear soon. You describe it as a very happy year, and your mum recounts it with great fondness. While a career in law was far from your mind in these early years, those around you quietly noticed your emerging skill set, an ability to make a case, and a keen interest in words and language. While at school in Colorado, you successfully negotiated to be excused from the daily ritual of swearing allegiance to the American flag on the principle of your Australian heritage. Principled and authentic remain characteristics used to describe you still. On another occasion, when you were around 8, your mum recalls telling you sternly, "I wouldn't do that if I were you." Surprised to see you continuing with the task, she asked if you had heard her. You politely replied, "Yes." You said, "If I were you, I wouldn't do it." Perhaps this was an early indicator of your developing sense of humour, now described by one colleague as desiccated. A colleague has requested anonymity, Your Honour. After graduating, you enrolled at the Australian National University to study economics, fitting with your natural mathematical abilities. Had it not been for the canny enrolment officer who noted your great marks and suggested you do something alongside economics, we quite likely would not be sitting here today. You might be sitting in a building not far from here completing someone's tax return, Your Honour. Throughout your time in university, your interest in law quickly grew, not because you found it easy. On the contrary, it challenged you. You worked hard. You won an undergraduate scholarship that covered your fees with a little bit of money left over. You made the most of that and your university holidays to travel. For one of your first adventures, you skipped the conventional tourist destinations in favour of Papua New Guinea. You slept on the deck of a merchant boat and travelled into the interior. No doubt you will closely follow the fortunes of the new PNG team and the NRL should it come to pass. This was followed by adventures in Africa and India. You found it eye-opening and challenging, and even now, with a bit more change rattling around in your pockets, you still opt for adventure over luxury. Case in point, a recent winter trip to Siberia. Before your final year, you knuckled down and did a summer clerkship with Malice and Stevens Jack. It was your first exposure to the legal workplace and you enjoyed it immensely. Your talent was recognised. After graduating and being admitted as a solicitor in 1990, you moved to Sydney and were offered a role as an associate to the Honourable Justice Foster of the Federal Court of Australia. This work exposed you to the court and to litigation, which you enjoyed. While continuing in this role, you started a Master of Laws at the University of Sydney. After completing the associateship, you returned to Mallison's, working in banking and finance, and then property and commercial litigation. As your career took off, so did your family life. You and Liz married in 1993, and you welcomed Harry a few years later. You graduated from your Masters in 1995, but travel was still calling, and again, the three of you, including a brand new Harry, moved to London. You lived in Richmond, working with Herbert Smith. There you got your first experience of professional negligence work, which has been an important part of your practice ever since. You describe it as a fantastic 2 years. Liz does too, and you admit it was a hard decision to leave. But you returned to Sydney and were called to the bar in 1999. You joined 12 Wentworth Selborne Chambers, starting what has become an enduring 25-year legacy. You've practiced broadly in areas of commercial law, competition and consumer law, equity, insurance and reinsurance, professional negligence, property, consumer protection, corporations law, alternative dispute resolution and appeals. You approached your caseload in the same way as your schooling. You worked hard and applied yourself fully. People noticed your diligence, your discipline and your dedication to work. And you haven't shied away from difficult cases. The way you approach them, finding legal answers to every situation, has set you apart. You are highly regarded, particularly in the insurance and professional negligence matters. You took silk in 2014, and a colleague described that as you taking to it like a duck to water. You've acted for law firms in some of the largest and most complex cases against them in the state, winning case after case. In 2020, you acted for corporate regulator ASIC, obtaining one of their largest civil penalties to date. You've been described as subtle and unassuming. On a case together, a colleague observed how your strategic approach left nothing open to your opponent, a fact they didn't realise until it was too late. You were known for your efficiency in language to the point of often being described as having a pathological hatred of surplusage. You make each word and at times even a single letter count. If only some of my parliamentary colleagues could be tutored by you, you are. You honour the camaraderie of the profession, noting that your colleague today can be your opponent tomorrow. You've gone out of your way to help people and have had great support in return. You're a go-to guy for commercial questions in chambers and are renowned as always being available to colleagues. Your junior colleagues particularly recognise and appreciate the support you provide, from the technical to the practical, like offering to babysit on an occasion when a colleague was without childcare so they could attend a conference. As the most recent chair of the floor, you've been consultative and measured. While many colleagues refer to you as serious, they also find you very funny, kind and warm. They'll all miss you, but are excited by your next steps. Also excited by these next steps are your proud family. Your partner in all of these endeavours has been Liz. Together you've raised 3 independent children. You live in Pymble, having recently attempted to downsize from the long-term family home in Gordon. While that didn't exactly work, the smaller garden is a respite for your missing green thumb. You are and have always been a family man. Despite the pressures of the job, you've always been present for your kids. Liz recounts you arriving on time to every antenatal class, although she concedes some credit is due to a female partner in your law firm who roused on you until you left the office. You're a regular at Saturday sports, pacing the sidelines, shouting encouragement to the kids in the under-8 soccer, and enjoying hours watching and helping score the cricket. You also brought your legal skills to the home front, resolving family disagreements in a measured way, making everyone feel like they were considered. Your kids are hoping the family democracy will not be lost with your new status. You've also passed your love of travel to your kids. You enjoy travelling together with recent adventures including Japan, the Middle East and Cuba. While your overall contribution to the domestic load may have waned fairly early, Liz does report that the delicious meals you cooked her when you were first dating were also the last. She does report that you're very good at washing up, taking the helm with no complaints after the weekly family dinner. You love to read and are particularly happy when reading military history. And you have an artistic side that, like your work, draws on immense patience and attention to detail. The intricate figurines you painted for your parents' 25th wedding anniversary are still pride of place at your mum's house. Your beautiful tile mosaics are sought after among friends. Your Honour, your colleagues, friends and family think you'll make an exceptional judge. You are polite, collegiate, you remain calm and considered under pressure. You thrive on detail and, after proper deliberation, are very decisive. All skills that will make you an outstanding judge. You are a trusted legal mind. Your colleagues, friends and family are not at all surprised by this appointment. It's well deserved. They look forward to your judgments, although hope they are longer than your typical one-letter responses of Y for yes and N for no. They warn barristers appearing before you to not waste their words. Your Honour, my warmest congratulations on behalf of the Bar and of the people of New South Wales. Thank you for serving. May it please the Court.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney. Miss Cassandra Banks, immediate past President of the Law Society of New South Wales.
May it please the Court. I too acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet, the Gadigal of the Eora Nation, and I pay my respects to their elders, past and present. On behalf of the Solicitors of New South Wales, it is a privilege to stand before this Court and congratulate Your Honour on this appointment today. The lead up to this moment has been full of fascinating conversations about Your Honour's ability at law, many noting a wonderful dryness of humour and a love for your family. Solicitors, barristers and judges have been deeply impressed by your conduct at the Bar, your logical approach to legal matters, and by Your Honour's diligence, thoroughness and focus. Contrary to all of this, though, was a lone wolf in the night, one candid reflection. Your Honour was described as, and I apologise, but quite boring. Before people looked dubiously at me, this was by none other than yourself. Known for your self-deprecating sense of humour, I nevertheless believe that what we have already heard today may dissuade anyone from believing this for a second. The bench that Your Honour has joined is concerned with the reality of justice, the application of law. It is extraordinary, not just in its ability, but in the combined focus of this wide group of honourable people directing the law in a positive way. It is full of bright, gifted minds, people who work extraordinarily hard, appointed from a legal profession already famous for its work ethic. I think it is fair to say, from my experience, that the honourable judges of this bench love their work. Your Honour, these points apply equally to you. However, I am well advised that Your Honour is as unlikely to speak of your own ability as engage with LinkedIn or the choosing of colour of paint in your chambers. This may come from a deeper appreciation of what drives nature and people. Your Honour's father was, after all, as we have heard, an astrophysicist. People have suggested that this and your upbringing, plus natural intelligence, has led to a bemused tolerance of the more mundane aspects of life, and simultaneously allowed for a deeper focus and appreciation of people and ideas, and for many decades, the law. Your Honour has picked up the mathematical ability of your father, self-described as more of a numbers person, and noted by several solicitors and barristers as the person one wanted with matters of forensic accounting or complex damages calculations. Your Honour also remarked that your mathematical ability was not only redirected by a careers advisor, as we have heard, who noted that you had excellent marks and that you should consider enrolling in law. On behalf of the Solicitors of New South Wales, thank you, nameless careers advisor. All who were spoken to for this speech remarked on this high intelligence, but one instructing solicitor who worked with Your Honour for around 15 years explained that whilst Your Honour came across as being extremely clever, it is not in a way that makes others feel belittled or silly. Instead, it was noted that one finds oneself at their very best. Your Honour has the wonderful ability to naturally bring people up with you, allowing others to see something of this in themselves. People said this is not done intentionally either, but it is a quiet attribute. Of course, Your Honour has also spent 9 years as an extremely fine solicitor and 25 years as a highly respected barrister. Since 2014, Your Honour has been a silk, one of the most respected in your fields of law. This intellectual and personal ability has been honed over many years of work, and Your Honour's ability at law has been driven by a serious work ethic. One colleague at the bar described this style of work as arriving in the morning by 8 a.m, then closing the door and working without lunch until 6 p.m, a routine kept up even throughout COVID. But beyond being very diligent and hard-working, junior barristers also reported that it was a delight being your junior. This was partly because Your Honour is detail-oriented, reading every document in every matter and thinking deeply about the legal consequences of evidence and matters months before they came to court. Having a silk who was across this level of detail and strategy meant your juniors could engage with Your Honour much more deeply on legal issues. It also allowed for confidence that the advice given to clients was thoroughly considered. In this, Your Honour has been noted by both instructing solicitors and junior barristers alike as impressively consistent. It is no doubt a quality that will stand Your Honour in great stead on this bench. Your Honour's succinct approach, stripping away any extraneous detail and crafting complex ideas into digestible arguments, has also been appreciated by the courts, in which Your Honour has extensively appeared. Others noted that the dry humour, calmly accompanying your brevity of expression, has eased many moments, especially in the demanding requirements of the legal profession. This is accompanied by a great deal of intellectual endurance, allowing Your Honour the ability to maintain a close focus on what's being said, long into matters and hearings. Instructing solicitors have noted that in significant matters of great value and complexity, including issues of professional negligence within the solicitor profession itself, Your Honour has been a first, trusted, calm port for many years. Described as a go-to person for many in the profession, and by one senior solicitor as one of the easiest people to deal with at the bar that they have ever come across, this has made a great impression on many people. Your Honour was also noted by instructing solicitors for being extremely open to and encouraging of debate, and not simply at the senior level. This was equally true for junior solicitors, with legal debate accepted as a positive necessity, a view echoed by numerous instructing solicitors. To couple this with being an extremely modest person, but as one solicitor put it, the best eye for detail of any barrister that I've ever come across, one begins to sense just why it is that Your Honour is here today and being appointed to the bench. Of course, it is much more than hard work, focus, and detail that supports an appointment to this bench. Barristers saw how Your Honour is driven by ensuring other people's welfare including equity considerations on your old floor. Your Honour has also been noted for being interested in challenging your own perspectives and prejudice, even admitting that you suspected you may have unconscious bias. Taking active steps to remedy that is testament to Your Honour's capacity for both insight and self-critique, both excellent attributes for any judge. Finally, outside of law, it is no small statement to say Your Honour is very committed to your family. But if I may, early views may differ here. Back when Your Honour was a solicitor at King Wood Mallisons in the 1990s, you were working with a very senior solicitor. This now honourable judge of this court had recently had their first child. Back then, Your Honour had none, but was rather fond of discussing the deprivation theory of child raising. It was noted this was, of course, something Your Honour has subsequently distanced yourself from, especially once the reality of a young family dawned on Your Honour's life. Lightheartedness aside, Your Honour is very proud of your children and your family, and you are deeply devoted to them. That shows through Your Honour's discussion of your children and wife. It is heard in Your Honour's voice when recounting your trips with your family and sense of exploration and joy in sharing this with your children, and the appreciation of much more than the black letter of the law, as important as that may be. This is not a globe-trotting lover of the high life either, as we have heard, but an understated person who appreciates people deeply. That Your Honour has managed to keep your head under the radar without huge numbers of people realising how brilliant you are, the words of one barrister from your old floor, is perhaps now slightly done for after today. Nevertheless, it is replaced by a happy explosion of this in the public appointment to the highest court in the state. Today is a genuine celebration of all that Your Honour has given to the legal profession, the clients in matters you have represented, and the very meritorious appointment to this bench. Your Honour, on behalf of the solicitors of this state, it is my pleasure to warmly congratulate you on being appointed to the Supreme Court of New South Wales, as the court pleases.
Thank you, Ms. Banks. Justice Faulkner.
Chief Justice, Mr. Attorney, judges of this court and other courts, distinguished guests, colleagues, family and friends. I want to start by thanking every one of you for attending today and sharing with me this occasion. I also want to thank you, Attorney General and Ms. Banks, for the remarks which you have just made. Having heard the remarks from this side of the court, I think for the benefit of my mum and all the non-lawyers here, I need to explain exactly how this works. The person they're talking about is me. And a fair slice of it is not true. You will have your own experience of my character, and I think you'll find that's a much safer guide. There are a few things I would like to say. I know that it's customary for some of it to be humorous, and I want to make clear that muddling up the oath of allegiance was not intended to be humorous. That was because I'm quite stressed. Now, something has already been said about me being born in Canberra and ending up in law school at the ANU. I came to Sydney in December 1988 and started work as a summer clerk at Mallison Stephen Jakes. And I was offered a graduate position, which I took up after I completed my degree. Went backpacking in Africa and worked for a year as the associate to Justice Michael Foster in the Federal Court. Working with the lawyers at Mallisons was formative for me as a professional person. It was an environment where my growing interest in the law found engaging application, and I picked up the professional ethic of excellence and the hard work necessary to achieve it. I met a lot of fine people, many of whom are to be found throughout Sydney's legal community today, there are a couple of people in particular whom I want to mention. On my very first day as a summer clerk, I was shown into the office of the supervising partner, Peter Stockdale. It was over 35 years ago, but from that day until this, Peter Stockdale has provided continuous support for my career in the law. When I returned my briefs last week, one of those briefs was a brief from Peter Stockdale, one of those heavy commercial causes which I regretted having to send back. I don't know why I was the summer clerk who was allocated to Peter Stockdale in 1988, but it made a difference, and I am grateful to him, especially for the confidence he showed in me. As a graduate, I spent a confused year in a transaction department, as has been said. In 1993, I rotated to litigation and I moved up to the 56th floor of the AMP building on Bridge Street and was allocated a new office. Immediately next door on the right of that office was the office which was occupied by the partner who subsequently became Justice Ashley Black. Immediately next door on the left of that office was the office which was occupied by the partner who subsequently became Justice Julie Ward, the President of the Court of Appeal. I sat in that middle office for 3 years and assisted my neighbours and other partners with their cases. This is a period of my career when I did the most learning. The day-to-day application of the substantive law and equitable principles, the procedures and practices of the courts, the skill defining and defending claims, and critically making judgments about whether a claim should be brought. Justice Ward also taught me the supreme governing principle by which all legal practice is to be conducted, namely, and I'll just read out the principle, without exception, everything has to be 100% correct all the time. For anyone taking notes, I'll just read that again. And yes, I also learned that it was essential to attend antenatal classes. Although everything still needs to be completed by tomorrow morning and to be 100% correct. I learned a lot of other things, but those are the most important ones. I don't think it's an overstatement to say that sitting in that middle office equipped me for all that has followed in my legal career. I am indebted to the partners in that litigation section, and particularly to Justice Ward for her tuition, including the clarity and forthrightness with which it was sometimes communicated. I subsequently worked in London for 2 years and then worked a couple more in Sydney. By that time, it became clear that life in a big firm was not for me. For the employee, a large law firm can be strangely seductive, but Liz and I began to wonder if the horizon might not be broader, if only I could get out and see it. When I investigated the alternatives, I discovered that there are only 2 ways to get out of a large law firm. You can go to the bar or you can dig a tunnel. Happily, I was offered a place to read on 12 Wentworth Selborne, which I gratefully accepted. My progress at the bar was not quick, but it was steady. I became more comfortable as I became more senior, and I eventually came to a sunlit upland where I was one of those fortunate people who truly enjoy their work, which was lucky because I had to spend a lot of time doing it. There are many people who've helped me at the bar. It's not possible to mention everyone, but there are some people I do want to mention. In my reading year, my tutors were Ian Jackman and Michael Lowenstein. I could not have asked for two better tutors. They were attentive and supportive, not just in the first year, but for the decades to come. I got to work with a number of silks from which there was much to learn. From the 12th floor, I worked often with Stephen Reris, Michael Pembroke, Robertson Wright, and John Robson. I also worked with the late Chris G, Paul Brereton, and I did many cases with Ian Jackman, including in the High Court. As you would appreciate, working with these leaders was invaluable. And of course, in the early years, they got me into good cases, which supplied me with plenty of work, and I'm grateful for that. In more recent years, I've been briefed with juniors of my own. I found that working with juniors is one of the best features of the bar from which both parties can benefit, not just the junior. The juniors I have worked with have come from many different chambers. I will not name any of them. But I will say, however, that I know they mean it kindly when they tell me, as many of them have, how delighted that I'm leaving to take up a job, a job which is perfectly suited to someone who likes to work alone. To all my juniors, thank you, especially for your special kind of perseverance. I also want to acknowledge my opponents. When talking about a trial, I have noticed in recent years that I have started to use the expression working with when describing my interaction with my opponent and the judge. I have come to experience the process of three participants in a common endeavour working with each other to have the real issues in the case resolved. Last week, at the ceremonial sitting of the court, the president of the Bar Association referred to the Confederacy of Bench and Bar. I experienced the reality of that confederacy in many cases, where by and large, barristers have approached the case constructively and treat each other with respect, goodwill, and even once or twice kindness. Not only does this result in a more pleasant workplace, but it makes more efficacious and efficient the administration of justice. I thank each of my opponents for the courteous and constructive way in which we have worked together and the way they have undertaken their respective defeats. Or victories, as the case may be. I practiced all of my 25 years from chambers on the 12th floor. When I arrived in 1999, the most senior person was Chester Porter QC, and the most junior was the then expiring reader, Kelly Reese. While I have been there, 23 members have taken appointments. Others have retired and new members have joined. Not all at once, obviously, but imperceptibly, the membership has changed over the years and is almost completely different today. Throughout this slowly rotating kaleidoscope of aspiration, achievement, and personality, the 12th floor has had an unchanging culture of harmonious coexistence, free of rancour and ill will. A constant stream of instruction and support from which I have benefited both upstream and down. As I have said on another occasion, the 12th floor allowed me to be the best barrister I could be, and I'm grateful to all the members who have passed through and who make up the membership today. The floor staff has changed too, but there has been a bright, friendly and helpful team throughout. I want particularly to mention my clerk, Trish Hoff. I have enjoyed practicing with Trish as my clerk. I've also benefited greatly from the assistant clerk. In 2025, Bevan Jones will take up the position as my tip staff when he has completed his duties on the floor. In some ways, I'm most thankful for the solicitors who have briefed me over the last 25 years, including those who briefed me from the earliest years at the bar. I won't name them, and my gratitude is not just for the partners who chose me to represent their clients, but I also want to mention as a class the senior associates. From my experience, the senior associate is the engine room of litigation. I sometimes think that behind every great barrister there is a great senior associate, literally just one row back. I've been fortunate enough to work with senior associates who are very able and diligent and full of energy. If we could take the McDonalds and McGees of this world, the Chapmans, Paulettos and Hammonds, if we could take the Whites and somehow harness their energy and turn it into electricity, we could make the administration of justice carbon neutral. To the senior associates, I need to say thank you. What I have said explains, or at least describes, the past which has got me to this point in my professional life. Of course, before all that, there was the Faulkner family, into which I was born in Canberra. There were my parents, my mother June, who is here today, and my father Donald, who died 20 years ago, which was a catastrophe for us all. I did not choose my parents, but I still get a lot of credit for the parenting that they did. I was not an easy child or adolescent or young adult, really. From my perspective, Don and June did a great job of parenting and building a family which includes my brother Mark and my sister Alexandra, who are also here today. I grew up in a loving, warm and secure environment. I was never pushed in any particular direction. My parents were progressive, thinking it important that their children work out their own values and live their lives in accordance with those values, not somebody else's, including the parents, and to do so at an early age. Reflecting on it, for me, the main learning I've taken from my family is a strong sense of the importance of doing right, which I notice finds form in the judicial oath, which I have just taken. I feel that learning has served me well in life. The two oaths I have made today were not the first solemn promises I have made. As a solicitor, I made a number of oaths. They were usually something like, annexed here to and marked day is a true copy of a self-serving letter. I don't want to suggest that that is not an important oath, but it's not like the promise I made in January 1993 when I married Liz. I love being married to Liz. I would not be sitting in this seat today if Liz was not sitting in her seat. As a seating arrangement, there are pluses and minuses. It's not lost on me for a moment nor taken for granted that most of the pluses are on my side and most of the minuses are on Liz's side. I'm deeply thankful for the graceful delight with which Liz has received this recent development in our life together. It follows no less from the inside efforts and contributions of Liz than from my own, and that is a truth. Liz and I have 3 children, Harry, Kate and Lockie. Whether they are taken alone or as a group, for Liz and me, they are a source of immense joy and gratitude. In most recent years, one of the greatest joys Liz and I have received from our children is the partners they have introduced into our family, Emily, Gordon and Katie. As for the future, I'm now joining the court. I'm a little overwhelmed by the warmth and practical help with which I have been received by the judges and the court staff. I have received many letters, invariably written by hand, and from this I have noticed that my own handwriting is holding up pretty well. There is one letter which is written on genetic court letterhead which is completely unreadable, including the name of the judge who sent it. So there may be one member of the court to whom I have already given offence by not replying. I'd like to take this opportunity to apologise. I just hope it's not someone on the Court of Appeal. It may not have come through from the remarks of the Attorney-General and Ms Banks, but I am not a person who usually gets accused of being excited. However, I think the word excited fairly describes the way I feel about a future working on the court. In December last year, I received an email from the New South Wales Bar Association to which was attached a message from the President. At the time, the President had just commenced her presidency. Her message included the following statement: a legal system operating subject to the rule of law is a substantial human achievement. This statement is so fundamental that it warrants being said, and I credit the President for including it in her first message and for saying it again last week at the ceremonial sitting. It is a profound statement, rendered all the more profound by the simplicity and the clarity with which the President made it. In particular, it directs attention to the human element, the work required of each of us to uphold the rule of law and ensure that the legal system continues to operate subject to it. It's a great work. Many people have a role to play, but in New South Wales, the Supreme Court is at the centre of that great work, and I regard it as a privilege to have the opportunity to participate in the work of this court. Thank you for coming. Thank you, Chief Justice.
Mr. Faulkner, the court will now adjourn.
All stand. This honourable court is now adjourned.